So the ASHP Midyear for 2020 is going to be completely virtual. A couple of weeks ago, ASHP announced that their 2020 meeting is going to be completely virtual. If you have not seen the announcement or the video already, I'll post a link to it in the description below. It should be very interesting to see how they're going to make this work. ASHP has done virtual events in the past, many of them in fact, including a virtual residency showcase in 2019. It's probably going to be different than the 2019 one, just because the 2019 one was an addition to the physical one, and this is going to be a complete replacement for the whole event. So I'm very curious to see how they're going to operationalize that. The other thing I want to say is that for this video, all I want to do is focus on the residency showcase. You know, the showcase itself is a large reason why so many students, residents, programs, and recruiters attend midyear, and I want to just kind of think about what I would do if I was a student or resident approaching a virtual midyear, and that's the main purpose of this video. And specifically, I want to share 9 thoughts that I have about a virtual midyear. Also good to know, Tony Guerra also created a video about his thoughts on what ASHP virtual midyear may look like, so I highly recommend you check that out. I'll post a link to his video as well. So the first thought that comes to mind is research. Now, I don't actually think there's going to be a large difference in the amount of research you do, whether it's an in-person showcase or a virtual showcase. The only thing that comes to mind here is that if you look at the 2019 virtual residency showcase, it was chat only. I think that's a little strange. My thought is that the new showcase is going to have audio and video. You can even see it on the website. The video portion is just an optional piece, and we really don't know what's going to happen there, because even if ASHP allows video, the programs themselves are going to have video capability. But my expectation is that they're going to have video. The reason why that is important is, let's say there isn't video, and let's say there's not audio, and they revert back to a 2019 virtual residency showcase in which it was just chat. The important part about research here is your list of questions. When you compile your list of questions and it's a chat only, you probably want to have your questions in a grammatically correct format. You know, when I was doing my questions for the programs, I was just jotting out different notes or bullet points that I wanted to ask, but it wasn't always grammatically correct. You know, if you have a virtual event and you want to be efficient, you probably want to have grammatically correct questions that you can copy and paste into the chat box. More importantly, if we look at the 2019 virtual residency showcase, all the chats were archived, so they can see your grammar when you're speaking with them, and having a well-composed question probably is a good idea. Now, my thought is that this is probably just a minor point, just because I think the majority of programs are going to have, at minimum, audio and probably video as well. But again, just using 2019 as a reference, there is a possibility that it's going to be chat only. So if that's the case, you just want to have your questions spelled out in a grammatically correct way. The second thought that I have is about learning the platform. Just like how at a physical midyear or physical showcase, it's important to know where all the programs are located physically, so you can maximize your time in getting to those programs to be able to speak to them. It's a good idea to learn the platform that they're going to use at the actual midyear event, so you are efficient with your time and you can maximize it to its fullest. So if we use the 2019 virtual residency showcase as an example, I imagine that they're going to be doing the same exact thing for 2020, in which they're going to release instructional videos that show you how to create an account, how to register for events, how to attend the showcase, how to initiate chats, all of those things. The more you're familiar with the platform and know what to expect, the better you're going to be able to maximize your time. So something I highly encourage you to do is, as soon as ASHP announces the platform, talks more about it, take advantage of that and learn it. The third thought is about polishing your candidate materials. Obviously, you're gonna wanna have an up-to-date CV, so it's not gonna be printed out this time, of course. It's probably gonna be uploaded to their website, so make sure you have that updated. But there's two other things that are probably going to help you stand out in a virtual event. The first of which is a LinkedIn profile. If you don't have one already, definitely create one, populate it, maximize it, optimize it. There's a lot of resources out there that talk about that. I'm not gonna go into it, but if you don't have one already, create one for sure. That's important. But one of the more important things, I think, not only for LinkedIn, but for any type of virtual event or interactions you have a professional photo. If you don't have one already, usually you can find a local photographer that can do your photos for about $10 to $20. That will probably make you stand out way more in a virtual event than any other thing, because that's the very first thing people probably see. And a professional photo just means you went above and beyond. So if you don't have one already, definitely encourage you to have a professional photo. The fourth thought that I have is about dressing professionally. So this one's pretty obvious. When you are attending the event, you probably should be in business professional attire. That's obvious, right? The thing that's probably less obvious is you probably want to have the technology to maximize your professional appearance. And what do I mean by that? It's if you still have a webcam that is shooting at 240p, maybe it's a good idea to spend just a little bit more money. Not a lot. $30 or $40 can get you a 1080p webcam. You don't even need that, you can get like 720. But having a good quality webcam to maximize the video interactions that you may have with some of these programs, that's probably very important. So definitely do that so they can see you clearly, they can see the effort that you put in to your professional attire. Going along with that is audio. The last thing you want to do, let's say there's no video and it's just audio, the last thing you want is a terrible mic that is staticky, that has feedback, hard to hear. That just doesn't really give a good experience for the other person. So do your best to have that, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You know, any wired headset will do better than some integrated microphone that you have for the most part. The thing is, what I've noticed is that integrated mics and speakers can usually cause feedback, and that's probably would not be a good experience if you have experienced any type of feedback. So use any type of plugged in or wired headphones. If you are willing to spend some money, usually you can find a very cheap $15, maybe $10 Logitech USB microphone that's reliable. So it covers your ears and you have a little mic, and that's good to get reliable audio. And then the other thing to think about is kind of your background. You want to make sure your background is clean, of course, but also thinking about lighting. You know, you want to set yourself in a place where there's decent lighting so they can see your face. If there's not a lot of lighting, usually your webcam might adjust and you become very pixelated, so that kind of defeats the purpose. So you want to also have good lighting, and a good recommendation here is to set yourself up where there is probably a window in front of you and the light is shining on your face. That usually gives you the most flattering light, and that looks really good. The other thing is about headroom. When you set yourself up, you don't want to have too much headroom where it looks just kind of strange, and you don't want to have too little. Too little just gives off the feeling where people don't feel as comfortable and they feel constricted. So you want to have some adequate headroom when you're setting up. So in addition to thinking about the typical business professional attire, you should think about having the technology to support you looking the best that you can. The fifth thought that I have is about having an elevator pitch. This is probably not any different than going into a in-person mid-year, but just in case, I think it's always good to remind everyone about this. Just having a quick elevator pitch, because time is probably going to be very short when you're interacting with programs. You want to be efficient, and an elevator pitch can just help someone get to know you right away, what you're interested in, and if they have what you're looking for. So something very basic. Of course, always start with the greeting. Greet them. How are you doing? Your name, your title, are you a student? Organization, what school you're from, what hospital you're a resident at, your interest. I'm a third-year student from University of Florida, interested in critical care or infectious diseases. And the last thing, what you're looking for. I'm looking for a residency this year. I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for a fellowship. Whatever you're looking for, be sure to communicate that. And if you can even spice it up a little bit, because you have time to do research on these programs beforehand. For example, if you're interested in infectious diseases, you can say, I'm looking for a residency at the University of Utah because I know the infectious disease preceptors are so great. I know you guys have a great PGY2 program there, and that's why I'm talking to you. So having an elevator pitch is a good idea for someone to quickly get to know you. Don't memorize a script, just have those talking points so it's a little bit more organic each time. Just play it by ear, but you want to cover those points each time. The sixth thought that I have is about maximizing your interview efficiency. The biggest difference between an in-person mid-year experience and a virtual one is that there's no physical barrier to prevent more students from coming in. And so, if you think about the showcase, right? You have a program and it's the amount of students that can hover around or wait to speak to someone is limited by physical capacity. That's not true with the virtual one, to some extent. Basically, you can have 20,000 students at once queue for a program, and how you manage or mitigate that or handle it, whatever word you want to use, is going to be very different. And if you use the 2019 ASHP Virtual Residency Showcase as an example, it looks like they had all the programs listed, and you just highlight which ones you're interested in speaking with. And then when they're available, you will be automatically entered into a chat with them. My thought is that the 2020 virtual showcase is going to be similar to the 2019, where it's just going to be a list of programs, and then you just check each one that you're interested in, and you get queued up to speak to a representative whenever it's available. That's just a thought. I'm not sure. But if ASHP changes that in any way or creates a different process, you'll probably want to know what that is so you can maximize that time and create a strategy around how you can talk to as many programs as you want, or at least the ones you're interested in, as to not be dominated by 20,000 other students. I think that's one of the biggest things you should consider. The seventh thought that I have is about maximizing your visibility. In a large virtual event, it probably is helpful for both candidates and programs to quickly filter down candidates or programs. And because of that, there's probably a huge advantage to filling out more of your online profile than not. So I'll give you an example. If you're just going to upload your CV, link to your LinkedIn, and maybe fill out some basic details about your name, your school, that might not be the best if there are other fields for things like your internships, your rotations, your projects, your community service, your GPA, all of those other things, because if a program searches for you and they're searching for all candidates that have a GPA greater than XYZ and you have nothing filled out, I don't know how they're gonna build it, but let's say what they do is if you don't have anything filled out, they're just not gonna pull you into the search. Same with rotations. Let's say a program tries to search for all the students that have critical care rotations, or all students that have had a internship. If you didn't fill anything out, maybe they don't pull you in. I don't know. This is just a complete guess. My thought is just that filling out the majority of the profile, not being lazy about it, will probably give you an advantage if that is the case. So my next thought, fill out the profile to the best of your ability, as complete as possible. The eighth thought that I have is something that can be applied anywhere, and that's not only be professional, but also be personable. The mid-year is virtual because of the whole COVID-19 situation. Everyone's under a lot of stress. There's a lot of negative things in the world. And part of the mid-year experience is not just about figuring out what objectively you want in a program, but finding one that is a good fit. You know, as much as you're evaluating them, they're also evaluating you as a person. You know, taking the time to try your best and building rapport, being kind, just asking them about their day, genuinely caring about someone, building a connection with someone. I mean, these are people that you're gonna be working with potentially for the entire year. So think about, sounds kind of weird, just be a personable and nice and genuine person, be kind and courteous, goes a very long way when it comes to these kind of things. And you know, from being on the program side, talking to so many candidates, you're tired, they ask the same questions, what rotations you offer, what is your experience like in the critical care unit. But if someone comes up to me and says like, oh, it's been a long day, right? You know, you're trying to relate and build rapport with someone, that person probably would stand out more than others. So just a thought, be personable, be kind, and that'll probably help. My ninth thought is about follow-ups, and this one isn't as actionable as perhaps some of the other ones. It was just a thought that came up, and this is the idea of sending follow-up emails and thank yous to those who you've interacted with at the programs. You know, previously, if it was an in-person showcase, you would go and meet with the program, you're jotting down notes about the individuals so you can send a more personalized message to them later. What's nice now is if you use the 2019 virtual showcase again as an example, it seems as though all the chat logs will be logged. I don't know if that would be the case in 2020, but my assumption is yes. And if that is the case, that would be awesome, because basically you have a log of every single conversation with every single person and program. So when you're sending those follow-ups to those individuals, it would be easier on yourself. It was just a thought that came up. All right, guys, so those are my 9 thoughts on the virtual showcase. However, I have a couple of wild cards that I also wanted to share, and I'm just kind of curious if this would be something that ASHP is gonna do. And there's 3 things here for wild cards. The first of which is group video chat or group chat in general. And this would be very unique because it would probably mirror an in-person showcase more than just a one-on-one. And the reason why is because, you know, when you're in showcase and you're talking to a program, usually it's many different individuals that's surrounding a program or an individual waiting for their chance to interact. And it's usually a group interaction. And why that's important and why this is a wild card is one of the things that we tell students is to think about how you interact in that setting, because it's not just about how much you know and how great you are as a candidate when you're talking to them. It's also about how you interact in a group setting. So are you courteous to others that's in the group who are technically your competitors? Are you respectful of them? Do you interrupt them? Do you acknowledge them? You know, in many cases when someone else is talking, a smile or a nod goes a long way, and that body language is important and something that people probably look for. So group video chats would be very interesting. I don't know if ASHP is gonna do that. I wanna say no, but it would be interesting if they did. The second wild card is about virtual receptions. You know, many programs have receptions at mid-year. And one of the things I used to think about during showcase is you talk to a program and you want to impress them enough to where they give you an invite or invitation to their reception so they can get to know you more on a personal level. I'm curious if they're gonna host virtual receptions in this case. And I'm not gonna go too much more into that, but basically, the rule of thumb in general, if you're at mid-year, you get offered a reception, attend. Usually if you attend a reception, that's a good sign. If you don't, I don't know if they're necessarily hold it against you, but out of courtesy and a sign of respect, just attend it. You don't have to be there the entire time, but it's important that you attend it. Now, I don't know if this is gonna work virtually, but again, another wild card that may or may not happen. And the last thing is ad hoc virtual meetings. I feel like this is gonna happen, because at mid-year, it's very, very, very common that you're in a meeting, you're in a presentation, or you bump into someone and you're like, hey, let's chat further. This seems very interesting about whatever topic it may be. And you schedule a time for later, or right now you made a connection and you say, hey, let's go grab some coffee. Let's chat about this more. It's gonna be different here. And I don't know if ASHP would do it just because there's not that, random encounter where you might meet someone. So I don't know if that will happen, but maybe it does. Maybe someone sees you, maybe there's like maybe there's some function that ASHP is going to enable where you can quickly filter for candidates. Maybe there's going to be group chat rooms or something like that where you just find someone interesting and you have an ad hoc connection with them. I wouldn't be surprised if this occurs, whether it's within ASHP's formats or mid-year, or whether it's outside. But my assumption is that some of this, or actually this will likely occur, and you should be prepared, especially if you're looking for programs, for something like this. If it's something right now, do your best to meet with them. But if it's scheduled for something, sometime later, sounds kind of obvious, but I would encourage you to do some research on the program, do some research on the person that's probably going to be interviewing you, just so you seem prepared. All right, guys, so that kind of wraps up this video. Those are my thoughts on what a virtual mid-year, specifically a showcase, may look like. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and we'll see you guys in the next video.